योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि। आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुस्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। Okay, so last time we saw that we were transitioning from the subsection around Chitta Parikarma to talking about Samapatti, and then we spent some time giving an overview of the Chitta Parikarma, so that we knew where we stood in the overall big picture of the topic, so that with that understanding we can embark upon Samapatti. The other thing that we did last time was to clarify certain aspects of Manas and Chitta, as well as clarifying some comments on how the mind, yogi's mind, our mind and so on, transforms as part of the process of cognition. So that's something we already covered last time. The other thing we did was, we started on Sutra 1.41, which, as we saw, is a relatively long sutra with multiple new terms. And we did elaborate and explain the different terms, the different padas in the sutra already. So that's something we've already covered. So I won't repeat that today, so that we can directly start on Vyasa's commentary, the Vyasa Bhashya, on the Sutra 1.41. Now the sutra is Kshina Vritter Abhijatasyeva Manehe Grihitra Grahana Grayeshu Tatstat Tadanjanata Samapattihi. So the purpose of the sutra is to define what is Samapatti. And the definition has been given and explained last time. So I'll directly start with the Vyasa Bhashya, and then we can correlate back to the sutra as and wherever it is appropriate, mainly in the interest of time. So Vyasa starts by saying, Kshina Vrittehe iti pratyastamita pratyayasya iti arthaha. So he is explaining the first term of the sutra, Kshina Vrittehe. Kshina Vrittehe means of the Kshina Vritti. Okay. What has Kshina Vritti? The Chitta. Okay. So it is a describing word for the Chitta. What kind of a Chitta? The Chitta whose Vritti is Kshina. So the Vritti, the state, the imprint, the cognitive imprint, the modification, the state and so on, has become Kshina, means has gotten faded away. Of this kind of a Chitta. So Vyasa nicely describes that as saying Pratyastamita Pratyayaha. So what is Pratyayaha? Pratyayaha means Jnanam. So the knowledge imprint or the cognition on the Chitta is Pratyayaha. So what has happened to the Pratyayaha? Pratyastamitaha, which means the pratyaya has now set, just like the sun rises and the sun sets. Okay, that's called a suryasta. Similarly, here the pratyaya has set and sort of gone away. So it arose, it set, and it has gone away. That kind of a chitta is a kshina vrittihi, and here kshina vrittehe means of such a chitta. Okay, so that is Vyasa explaining the term kshina vrittehe, which is the first term of the sutra. Next, abhijatasya iva manehe. Okay, so what is that? So Vyasa says, abhijatasya iva manehe iti drushtantopadanam. Okay, So what does that mean? So it is a drishtantam. Drishtantam means an exemplification or analogy, a model taken temporarily for better understanding. Okay. So abhijatasya iva manehe, like a abhijata mani. What is like a abhijata mani? Okay, firstly, what is a abhijata mani? So mani is like a crystal, right? Abhijata means, last time we saw, kuline shreshte manohare. So essentially here, abhijata means something that is pure, of a high caliber, pure, clean.
Immaculate crystal.
So with nirmalatvam, okay, so it is like he says, it's an immaculate crystal. So that is an exemplification. Okay, so here it is not to be confused by thinking that the chitta has taken a form of an immaculate crystal. That is not the drishtanta. The exemplification, the drishtanta is about the chitta will in some sense act similar to how an immaculate crystal will. Okay, and we'll see what that means. So the exemplification is on the process, which we'll see. So the third line Vyasa says, Yatha sphatikaha upashraya bhedat tadrupoparaktam tadrupoparaktaha upashraya rupakarena nirbhasate. So just as a sphatika, which is a pure crystal, pure money, a gem, depending on the upashraya, wherever it is placed, sort of the substrate. For example, it's placed next to a red flower, placed next to a blue flower, and so on. Upashraya bhedat tadrupoparaktam. It sort of takes on the color and the form, because it's completely pure and immaculate, of whatever the substrate is. And it appears as though it is that. Right? So if it's a big immaculate crystal kept next to a, let's say, a flower, it appears that a crystal is like a flower, because it itself is not distorting any rays of light. Whatever is happening is the underlying substrate just coming through without any distortion, right? And therefore it appears that that substance itself has taken that form. Okay, so it appears, so nirbhasate. Okay, so tatha, so here we are understanding the exemplification, the analogy, the drishtanta. Okay, so just as the crystal acts in such a situation, or just as a crystal appears in such a situation, tatha grahyalambanoparaktam chittam. Okay, so now if the chitta is now touched, colored, sometimes it's also translated as tainted. Okay, but here it's not really about taint. It's about the touch or the color or the influence on the chitta of what. Here is one example. The sutra talked about gruhita, grahana and grahya. So here the example is of grahya. Grahyalambanoparaktam. So a chitta that has taken as an alambanam or a support something that is grahya. So now what is grahya? So the indriyas, their job is to take in. Right? So indriyas are like sense organs. They are taking in from the surrounding and representing it to the mind, chitta, in some sense. So the grahya is the objects that are suitable for taking in, okay, that are meant to be taken in. Like he said, they are the knowables. Okay, so the indriyas are the instrument of knowing. More literally, the grahana is about taking in. Okay, just like a camera will capture. Here the instruments are capturing. So the things that are captured are the grahyas. So the chitta, grahyalambanoparaktam chittam. So the chitta that has taken the support of some such grahya and has been colored by that. Grahya samapannam. Okay, so samapannam is a variant of the word samapatti. Okay, so grahya samapannam, which means the grahya object has been perfectly samyak, okay, correctly represented. Some. Then a means in all ways, from all directions. Okay, so that is a samapatti. So grahya samapannam, grahya swarupakarena nirbhasate. So the swarupakara, the real form of that grahya object, okay, the form as of itself, that form the chitta takes and it appears to be that exactly. Okay? So that is what Vyasa is saying. So here the purpose of this statement by Vyasa is to correlate the Abhijatamani example with the way the chitta is operating in this state. And he has given that through an example of the Grahya in this case. Okay? So now maybe stepping back a little bit, what we are trying to understand here is Samapatti. Now this Samapatti is related to Samprajñata Samadhi, which we have already seen. So there was a sutra that talked about Vitarkanugata, Vicharanugata, Anandanugata, Asmita Matra Samprajñata Samadhi. Okay? Now, that particular sutra is what is known as a Lakshana Sutram. Okay? Where Lakshana is by some attribute by which you are able to recognize the thing. Right? So that sutra gave the Lakshana of Samprajñata Samadhi. How do you recognize something as a Samprajñata Samadhi? By these are the Lakshanas. It may be Vitarkanugata, Vicharanugata, Anandanugata, Asmitanugata. Now, the series of sutra that we'll see next are about Samapatti. In this sutra, Samapatti is defined and introduced. Next, we'll see Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Savichara, and Nirvichara. Now, from a Lakshana Sutra perspective for Samprajñata Samadhi, the Tarka Shastra has very specific things about what makes a Lakshana. And the sort of the canonical example is the cow. Okay, go iti shabdaha. Okay, so what is the Lakshana? So someone might say something that has 4 legs. Now this has a flaw of ati vyapti, because there are many things that are not cows but have 4 legs. Okay, so it is not a Lakshana. Okay, then is there something that has horns? Oh, but that is again ati vyapti. There are other animals that have horns, but they are not a cow. 4 legs and horns. Even that is not suitable, because again there are other animals with 4 legs and all. So there is a ati vyapti doshaha. Then you might have some other lakshana, something that is white in color or something that is brown in color. So here there is a problem again, because not all cows are white, right? So you might say, so there is avyapti. So the lakshana has to be something that precisely characterizes the thing to be characterized. So to characterize Samprajñata Samadhi, the precise thing that was chosen was Vitarkanugata, Vicharanugata, and so on. And for the canonical example of the cow, it is said in the Shastras that animal which has the dewlap, the flesh that sort of hangs below the neck and the body, that is the lakshana of the cow, because the other animals don't have that. Okay. So there, for the Samprajñata Samadhi, the purpose, there was a initial introduction with a lakshana being specified. Here what is happening, we are looking at Samapatti, which is part and parcel of the process of the Samprajñata Samadhi. But here, since we have built up a lot more background on what the Chitta is, what Chitta Parikarma is, and how it can go from the subtlest of the subtle to the large of the large, and so on, that we saw in the previous sutras, we are better equipped to understand the actual mechanism of the Samprajñata Samadhi and exactly what is happening here. Right? And that will be described starting now in this sutra with Samapatti, going further, where we start understanding what is Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Savichara, Nirvichara. And it is somewhat complicated, so it is worth paying very close attention to the things that is sort of will be described here. The another one point again about this is, the one word in Samprajñata Samadhi is Anugata. Okay? So Vitarka Anugata, Vichara Anugata. It is not Vitarka only. Again, when we talk about Samapatti here with Savitarka, Nirvitarka, we'll touch upon the characterization of Samapatti as Savitarka, Nirvitarka, and so on, and of Samadhi, Samprajñata Samadhi as Vitarka Anugata, Vichara Anugata, and so on, which I will not do right away, because we are still yet to understand what is Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Samapatti. But something to keep in mind, that this correlation will come later. So it's something to be sort of prepared for as we go through this.
See, when an object is presented to our mind, in front of our mind, what is the caliber of our knowledge? Suppose I show a flower such as rose. You don't just perceive the rose. There are so many things which will follow because of your impressions, earlier knowledge about rose, earlier memories, earlier references. So there will be a crowd of things the moment I present a flower or any object. And if you have never seen it before, yet there will be so many thoughts coming up, such as what this might be, what must be the purpose of it, what must be the function of it, from where it must have come. So if you have no knowledge about it, yet there is a crowd of so many mental modulations. When you know the object to some extent, such as the rose, all of you have seen the rose. Unnecessarily there will be so many things. You will recall the rose that you saw yesterday, somebody gave you sometimes, out of some feelings. So many things crowd, samskars, vasanas, tendencies. The moment I present an object, it will also trigger the vasana cortex, tendency cortex. So many tendencies will surface there. So many memories will surface there. So many experiences will surface there. So many thoughts will surface there. So this is how our perception is. Any object is presented in front of us. There are so many irrelevant and relevant things crowding, and that's how our perception is as it is, as we get it. It is because we have lot of rajatama vrittis, that is the character of the chitta. Pure mind, impure mind, tainted mind, sullied, sullified mind, etc. So there are so many things in our chitta. Like pure crystal clear water and impure water. So many things are there in impure water. What is there in crystal clear pure water? What is there? It's just water. Nothing apart from water to be tainting the water, spoiling the water. But if the water is muddy, water is dirty, how much is the water and how much is the dirt? So our mind stuff, our psyche is like that. It has so many sullifying aspects there, spoiling aspects there. Apart from that, we have our own memories, impressions, tendencies, which all come into and get mixed up with our perception. That's why the perception that we get is because of that. Suppose your mind is vexed, troubled, excited, disturbed, ruffled, and I talk to you. How much do you perceive what I say? And how do you perceive what I say? How do you perceive is also faulty. How much you perceive is also insufficient. So this is what is the condition of our minds. When an object comes in front of us, any thought locus such as grahitro, grahana, grahya, knowable, knowing and knower. So these are the three aspects which come as substrate to our mind. Our mind might think about objects, objective entities. That's called grahya. Our mind can think about grahana, the instrumental entities, such as the senses, such as the mind, psyche, consciousness. That's the instrumental entity. And subjective entity. So objective, subjective, instrumental are the three aspects around which our knowledge is built up. There is no knowledge outside the realm of the three categories. Can you name one? That there is a knowledge of the category which is either not knowable, nor knowing, nor knower. There is no fourth category of knowledge. Knowable, knowing, known. Grahitru, grahana, grahya. So all our mental modifications, all thoughts pertain to these three categories. Now here, as I just now said, how our mind grasps either the graspable or grasping or the grasper. There are lots of delimitations, there are lots of defects, there are lots of faults. That is why we have condition that we mistake, we misunderstand, we misapprehend more often than getting perfect, complete, ditto knowledge. So our knowledge is always having delimitations. There are dents, there are tainters, and therefore our knowledge is as it is, we get it. Now whereas with the Chitta Parikarma performed, now imagine a yogi, immaculate yogi, yogi's Chitta. How the yogi's Chitta will perceive, how the yogi's Chitta will have a knowledge process. What is our knowledge process as mortals, and what is the knowledge process of a yogi? That too who has undergone Chitta Parikarma. The culturing of the Chitta, purification of the Chitta. So we have seen the measures which a yogi applies to set right the mind, to purify the mind, to make the mind transparent like crystal. So like crystal shows you the object as it is, in its color, in its form. It doesn't show you any distortion, contortion, or any faulty color, insufficient color, improper color. The crystal will always show you the color and form of the object that is underlying it, without any contortion, without any distortion. That's why it is called immaculate crystal. Abhijata Manihi. So the yogi's Chitta, by taking recourse to the Chitta Parikarmas mentioned, becomes like that. When it becomes like that, how? What is that? What is how it is described? Abhijata Mani Iva. Now, Kshina Vruttehe. Therefore, the difference between our perception and yogi's perception is that our perception is defective because of bias. There are so many biases. There are prejudices in our minds. Conditioned mind. Purva Graha Dushita. Vernacular. Purva Graha Dushit. So because of our memories, because of our perceptions, because of impressions, because of our tendencies, the mind already has some spoiling matter in it. And therefore we never perceive the things as it is. Now yogi's mind, how it is? No attachment, no aversion, no likes, no dislikes, no loves and no loathes. Now characterize this mind of a yogi. No love, no loath, no attachment, no aversion, no like, no dislike. The knowledge will be coming as the object is and as the knowledge is, absolutely pure, without any taint and dent and delimitation or any limitation. The knowledge will be pure, complete. See, because of this crowd of our sanskars, vasanas, tendencies, we are not able to get the focus, even psychological focus. Now, when do you get a psychological focus? When these things are faded out, when they are remotely placed, then you get engrossed in a novel. You get undigrated mind to be reading a novel. Even some noise around, you don't take cognizance of the noise. Somebody coming around, you don't take cognizance. How does this focus come? Because these things have been kept at a distance. However, they are in the mind. They are in the mind, but however, there is a distance. And therefore, they don't interfere, and therefore, we are able to have a focus. Now, in case of a yogi, when the mind, the material of it itself is absolutely purified, immaculate, transparent. Our material is not purified, like yogi's mind. All these things are there, but however we are able to keep them at distance, and therefore we are able to get a focus. Therefore we are able to get an undigradated mind. But yogi's mind is now purified. Already it is a yogi's mind, having no attachment, aversion, like, dislike, love and loath. Moreover, it has been taken through a process called Chitta Parikarma, which we saw in the last topic. That means find out furthermore culturing, furthermore seasoning of yogi's mind. And therefore it becomes like an immaculate crystal. When it becomes immaculate like crystal, it can take the form of any object that comes under it, which is only of three categories: either knowable, or knowing, or knower. There is no fourth category. Now, as he said, Samprajnata Sutra, it is a Lakshana Sutra. It is a defining sutra. It defines Samprajnat Samadhi. Samapatti is a psychology of Samadhi. It is describing psychology, the process of Samadhi. So this is describing the process. And that was describing the Samadhi itself, definition. And as I told you, definition should be such that there are no faults. That's the Lakshana Sutra. And then it considers avyapti, ativyapti, doshas, and those are set aside. And I give you that example of a cow. How will you characterize a cow? You have to define the cow. You have to define the cow in such a way that no other non-cow will come in. No other non-cow will be circumscribed by your definition. That's why definition is a science of definition is immaculately perfect science. So there will be no non-pervasiveness, over-pervasiveness, etc., etc. Otherwise, in our definition, there are so many things, defects, such as over-pervasive. When you try to characterize yourself something, you will see that there is either non-pervasive, something will be excluded, or something more will be included, over-pervasive, under-pervasive, non-pervasive. So these are defects in when we mortals try to define something. And therefore we really don't qualify to be defining anything, because defects will be there, and therefore the definition will be refined year after year, decade after decade, century after century, eon after eon. So definitions will be reframed. This is what the mortals can do, and that's what happened to mortals who whatever they do it. Like sciences, man is working in science and technology, and then the theories are, again, there is appraisal at some point in time, and then there is a redefinition. So they say this is a better definition than earlier definition. Then in another 10 years they will say that was this is a better definition than earlier definition. So this is how mortal processes are going on. Like we have phases in sciences such as classical physics, pre-Newtonian, pre-Archimedes, then post-Archimedes, then Newtonian, then Galileo, and then Einstein. So physics has been changing. Why? Because of the limitation of the human mind, mortal mind. Because the mind is always infested by sanskars, by vasanas, by conditions, by bias, by limitations, by likes and dislikes and loves and loaths and etc., etc. Now it's already yogi's mind. Moreover, now you are all clean, but after taking a bath, what happens? You are more clean. Similarly, yogi undergoes chitta parikarma. So chitta has been further cultured, and therefore it gets a qualification to have tatsthata tadanjanata. Why? Kshina vruttehe. What vrittis are weakened, depleted, enfeebled, vrittis of rajatama gunas, vrittis of smriti samskaras, vrittis of vasanas, vrittis of your propensities, tendencies. So these are all exercising gravities on our mind. No one's mind is free of gravity. Unknown gravities are also exercising on our mind. Like past life, previous life, they are all exercising gravity on our mind. We really cannot be, that's why salvation is a concept, to be free from all that. Nobody is free from genetic background, genealogical background. So our mind has so many kinds of things which are tainters, spoilers. The mind will not be immaculate like crystal. But when it's like immaculate crystal, it will ditto emulate, absolutely ditto emulation of the substrate. That's how this kshina vruttehe. Therefore, abhijatasya iva manehe, it becomes like immaculate crystal. Tatstha tadanjarata, it gets steadied in the object because there are no such factors such as memory, bias, tendencies, prejudices, etc. interfering, and therefore it gets established into it. Tasthata tadanjanata. Last time I told you about anjana, colorization. So it ditto emulates the form and color of it. Swarupa of it. Because when it is a crystal clear thing, now in the physical realm, the crystal will only emulate the color, the ditto color of the form of the object, etc. If it's a red flower, red shrew flower, then you will see that red color of the shrew flower and the form of the shrew flower. But now this is yogi's mind. It goes to essential form of the substrate, not the physical form of the subject, of the object, the substrate, but essential form. So it is much more than physical crystal. The crystal will not show the essence of the substrate. It will show the form of the substrate. But it's already yogi. It has yogi's instruments, yogi's mind, yogi's senses, yogi's psyche, and that will show the swarupa. The samapatti pertains to essential form of it, not the appearances form of it, essential form. Do you follow? So, tatstha tadanjanata, samapattihi. Then Vyasa explains, I just now told you, swarupa. The swarupa of it will be shown, not just the rupa. Crystal will show only rupa of substrate. Ditto emulation of the rupa. Here the word is swarupa, and Vyasa has mentioned it. So it will grasp the swarupa, the essential form of the substrate. We will never catch essential form of the substrate. Even if our mind is like crystal, it will only show the form of it. So you need to ponder over this. What is the form of the object and essential form of the object? Samadhi, samapattis always pertain to essential forms, not appearances forms. Knowing the rose as it is not samapatti and samadhi process. Knowing the essence of rose is the subject matter of samadhi, not the form of rose, not the appearances form of rose. So Vyasa makes it clear. And just as I told, as he said, our mind becomes the object for any cognition. In psychology it is called apperception. We don't just know it. If you say this is rose, that means your mind has taken form of the rose. And therefore you know the rose. If it doesn't take the form of the rose, your psyche doesn't take the form of it, you will not know it is rose. You know it, that's called apperception in psychology. Perception, apperception. In apperception it takes the form of it. Appearance, form of it. Even when you hear, when you take smell, odor, you get that smell within you. That's why the psyche is such a great instrument. So your eyes will only show the form. What about ears? The sound also has a form. Shabda is a form. Sound is a form. And for sound perception, we have that same sound in our ears. It doesn't just fall on the eardrums and you get the sound. The sound is emulated. Taste is emulated. Smell is emulated. Form is emulated. Touch is emulated. Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. They are all emulated. That's how it's a marvelous instrument. Our eyes can only see the form. Eyes cannot see the sound. Eyes cannot see the smell. Get the smell. That's why we are given 5 senses. But the internal organ of mind is all organs. It is sarva indriyatmaka, ubhayatmaka, sarva indriyatmaka. So the mind will not only know the sound, taste, touch, etc. It becomes that. So this is the marvel of human psyche. If you get rose fragrance, it's not only you get smell perception and you say that becomes in your mind. So it can take form of smell, it can take form of touch, it can take form of all the 5 forms, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. That's the marvel of the internal organ, the chitta. It can become everything. However, in our case, it is not complete, it is impartial, it is the tainted, dented, it is partial, it is dented, tainted, biased, etc., etc. So it won't be ditto. Whereas in case of yogi, it will be ditto. So, tatsthata tadanjanata. The chitta gets established so much in it that it takes the swarup of it. It takes the essential form of it. Now, to just explain last statement I will make, you and me and all of us perhaps read Bhagavad Gita. We might read Gnaneshwari. We might read Bhagavad Gita. What's the difference between you reading, me reading, I reading, etc., etc.? When Gnaneshwar read Bhagavad Gita, what was the outcome? You and me read Bhagavad Gita, we read Bhagavad Gita. What was the outcome? What happened? Gnaneshwar read Bhagavad Gita, what happened? Shankar Ramanuja read Bhagavad Gita, what happened? And see the difference between what happened when you and me read, or when you and me read it, and what happened when they read it. They went to the core purport. They got the core purport. None of us can claim that we have got the core purport of Bhagavad Gita. Is that right? So they get core purport. So Gnaneshwar got to know Swarup of Bhagavad Gita. Shankar Ramanujacharya got to know the Swarup of Bhagavad Gita. We will only know the Rupa of Bhagavad Gita. There are 18 chapters. These are the name of the 18 chapters. These are the subject matters of 18 chapters. That's all we will be able to know, not beyond it. So try to understand Gnaneshwar's mind to know Bhagavad Gita and our minds to know Bhagavad Gita. You and me can know Bhagavad Gita. There are ways and means to know Bhagavad Gita. How much will we know? What will we know? How much will they know and what will they know? There is big difference between how much we know, how much Gnaneshwar will know. What we know and what he knows, there is a big difference. He knows the core. He gets to know the core of it. We get to know the surface of it. That too contorted, distorted, disfigured. Our chitta is like a contorted mirror, distorted mirror. We will never get the reflection of the reflected as it is. Always contorted. But yogi's mind, not like that. Moreover, when chitta parikarma undertaken, furthermore culturing, and therefore in samapatti, yogi's chitta becomes Swarupa of the object. Swarupanukara of the object, not Swarupanukara. In Sutra it has a different meaning, which will come in Nirvitarka Samapatti. But essential form. Samapatti is meant for essential form. Perceptions don't at all consider that. We want perception. What do you want to know? We want only the appearancy form. That's all. We don't want to know the essential form of anything. So in science they will take recourse to microscope, electron microscope, scanners, etc., etc. And they will try to know something which we won't know. Our naked eyes will not know. Just as we know the limitation of naked eye perception as against the perception with a telescope, microscope, electron microscope and scanner, etc. Big difference. So our mind is like naked mind. Naked mind. See the limitations. Naked eye perception limitations. You can't see bacteria. You can't see the atoms and molecules and particles, etc. Naked eyes cannot see them. Similarly, our mind is naked mind, naked intelligence. We have lots of limitations. Yogi's mind gets all built-in telescopes and scanners and microscopes, electron microscopes, radio telescopes and Hubble telescopes, everything built in. If something is remote, built in. And also scanner. So Yogi's chitta is a scanner. Our chitta is not a scanner. Our chitta needs to be scanned. Yogi's chitta itself is a scanner. Ponder over this. That's how Samapatti. Therefore, it qualifies for revelations, realizations of the supports Grahya, Grahana, Grahitru in essential form. Okay? And for that purpose, the parikarma is mentioned for chitta. Our parikarma is just to overcome tension and feel quiet, feel fine, feel beautiful, feel heavenly. That's why we go for our mind cosmetics. Yogi goes for that, so that his mind becomes like immaculate crystal, and it's just analogy. Because it is analogy, you should know what is beyond it. The beyond it, that it is a scanner. His chitta becomes a scanner. It tries to grasp the swarupa of grahya, swarupa of the grahya, grahana, swarupa of the grahitru. Grahanakara, grahyakara, grahitruakara, swarupa. I think that should be enough for the time being.
Now Vyasa, to draw the parallel with the crystal, right? He gave the example of grahya. And the line was, Tata grahya lambanoparaktam chittam grahya samapannam grahya swarupakarena nirbhasate. Now the next few lines, they are similar. So they are with the same template, just that instead of grahya, you will see different terms coming in. So the next line says, Tatha, similar to the first line. Bhuta sukshmoparaktam, Bhuta sukshma samapannam, Bhuta sukshma swarupabhasam bhavati. So instead of grahya, now the term here is Bhuta sukshma. Now Bhuta sukshma refers to the subtle elements. In some schools you may say those are the paramanu, anu, the atoms. In Sankhya Yoga typically you will say these are the tanmatras. Right? The tanmatra is the sort of the fundamental unit of the objects, the Vishayas. So Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha are the tanmatras. And the grosser objects are built, made of these tanmatras, in some sense. So
here, don't confuse between Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha, Vishayas and Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha, Tanmatra. That's why there is a confusion. Therefore, every time when it is referenced with reference to Tanmatra, you have to say Shabda Tanmatra, Sparsha Tanmatra, Rupa Tanmatra, Rasa Tanmatra, Gandha Tanmatra. So that surname has to be added. Otherwise, there can be Prashant Doshi, Prashant Kulkarni, Prashant Deshpande, Prashant Iyengar. So when somebody says Prashant Iyengar, you know who is referred to. Merely Prashant, you do not know, because you know so many Joshis and Kulkarnis and Deshpandes and Boses and Chatterjees and Banerjees. So every time you should add, when it is reference to Tanmatra, Shabda Tanmatra, Sparsha Tanmatra, and that's a beautiful word, Tanmatra, that only, Tanmatra. So the word is also coined, which is depicting the meaning of it completely and totally. Otherwise, don't just say Tanmatra. Don't say it's just a technical term given, Tanmatra. Like I am given name, Prashant. Many of you know that I am not all Prashant, because Prashant means Pacific. And many of you know I am a volcano. Now, there is no relationship between my name and my form. That's how our names are. Somebody is Shankar, somebody is Dattatreya, somebody is Narayan, somebody is Govinda. And nothing to do with the meaning of the words. But that's not the case here. So it's not just technical term, Tanmatra. So sometimes when you go to that, he will explain you. Breaking the word Tanmatra. Don't say it's just surname. Tanmatra is technical name given for metaphysical entity. Again, very apt terminology, Tanmatra. Matra, exclusive, only. So, Sukshma Bhuta means Tanmatras, Mahadankara, etc. Sukshma Bhutas. So, even, see, the crystal cannot show you invisible things. Keep invisible things under this crystal will not show that this is an invisible thing. It will show you something which has a tangible form, tangible color, tangible shape. Crystal will not show you anything that is formless. Metaphysical entities are formless. So here the crystal will also be taking form of the formless things. Metaphysically formless things. Tanmatra. So only what I wanted to tell you, Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, when you refer them to Vishayas, you can just use Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha. But when you refer to metaphysical entity of Tanmatra, Shabda Tanmatra, Rupa Tanmatra, Rasa Tanmatra, Gandha Tanmatra, this must be mentioned so that there is no confusion.
So here when we talk about the Bhuta Sukshma, this should relate to the Vicharanugata Sampragnata Samadhi or Vichara in general, because the Sukshma, the subtle element, if you remember that sutra, it was said Vichara ityukte chitte Sukshma bhogaha. Okay, so the chitta is subsumed by the Sukshma or the subtle entity that is known as Vichara. The chitta is subsumed by the gross or the sthula entity that is called Vitarka. So that has to be understood as the definition, and here through examples we can correlate what was said during the Sampragnata Samadhi Sutra and this particular sutra. And again this helps us guard against some translations where you'll say Vitarkanugata, you say Samadhi with deliberation, Vichara Samadhi with thought. So that is not what it is. It is about the support that the chitta has taken. If the support is Sukshma, it is Vichara. If the support is Sthula, it is Vitarka. Whether Savitarka or Nirvitarka, those are different sort of dimensions. But when we are talking, the main thing is whether is it Sthula or Sukshma, which is taken as the support of the Chitta, and that is to be clearly understood. And this is one area where translations cause a lot of confusion. Now just like Bhuta Sukshma, the next line, again with a similar template, says Tata Sthula Lambanoparaktam Sthula Rupa Samapannam Sthula Rupa Bhasam Bhavati. So if it is Sthula Lambanam, if the support is a gross object, something that we can see normally with our senses, whether it is Ghatam, Patam, Lotus or whatever, those also, it can take the complete form and sort of reveal the Swarupa and so on, and that happens. So here the range of things are being given just to sort of concretize the understanding. Similarly, Tatha Vishvabhedoparaktam, Vishvabheda samapannam, Vishvasvarupabhasam bhavati. So what is this Vishva or Vishvabheda? So Sthavara Jangamadi Characharam. So basically this whole world containing of sentient and non-sentient beings and so on.
Universal objects.
So those can also be the support, and in this case, in the case of a samapatti, similarly, they will the exact form will be taken without any taint and so on. Tatha. So we continue. Grahaneshu api, indriyeshu api drashtavyam. So grahana is the process of grasping, the process of knowing, and the instruments thereof, right? So here it is the indriyas and the indriya shakti. So last time we saw the line that clarified that says, Natu indriyanam golaka grahana vishayaha te hi sthula bhutantargata eva indriya shaktayaha eva grahanam. Okay? So this is not the sthula object like the eyeball or the eardrum and so on when we talk about the indriyas here. It is the indriya shakti. Okay? A similar thing we saw during the sutra that talked about the pratyaksha pramanam. We saw indriya pranalikataya. So the term indriya refers to the whole process right from the eyeball and the physical object to the particular aspect of the chitta that is operative with respect to that indriya, sort of the visual cortex and so on. So here what is to be understood is the indriya shakti, and that can be revealed, and samapatti on that is again the when we say Gruhitru Grahana Grahyeshu, we saw Grahya as Sthula and Sukshma, the gross and the subtle. Now we are looking at Grahana, the instrument of knowing, the instrument of grasping. Then Drashtavyam. Okay, so the samapatti on that also should happen. Okay, should be done. Grahana Lambanoparaktam, Grahana Samapannam, Grahana Swarupakarena Nirbhasate. So when that happens, the grahana also reveals itself in its essential form. Now just like we drew a parallel between the bhuta sukshma and the vichara anugata, the sthula and the vitarka anugata, the grahana gets a parallel with the ananda anugata. Like we described when we looked at the Samprajñata Samadhi Sutra, because the indriyas in their essential form, the manas and the indriya, are essentially sattvic. Okay, it is a sattva based entity. Just like the earth, the Prithvi and so on is more tamasic, right? The indriyas are more sattvic because they are all about knowledge and knowing, which is a characteristic of the sattva guna. The other characteristic of the sattva guna is ananda and bliss. Okay, so when in ananda anugata samprajñata samadhi, you can draw a parallel with the grahana lambanoparaktam samapattihi.
That's why we have the concept of sensory gratification. Gratification. What is gratification? And why do you say sensory gratification? Why the senses can be gratified? Why the senses can be gratified? So it has something to do with that ananda. And therefore ananda has been related to grahana aspects of samapatti. Because gratification only happens there in senses. Either the outer senses or inner sense. Grosser sense or subtler sense. But senses, if the senses are not there, there is no gratification. And therefore ananda is related to the grahana.
So now we have seen grahya in terms of sthula and sukshma. We have also seen grahana. And we have seen the grahana with reference to indriya shakti, indriyas and ananda anugata. The next is tatha gruhitra purushalambanoparaktam gruhitra purusha samapannam gruhitra purusha swarupakarena nirbhasate. So here it is about the gruhita. So the grasper, the cognizer, the knower, which as I said is the subjective entity, but it is a specific subjective entity. It is referring to buddhi bodhaka atma, buddhehe bodha. Okay. So that subjective entity by whose influence the buddhi is able to attain cognition. Okay, so that is why then you can draw this a parallel to asmita anugata, and here it refers to asmita rupa purusha. Okay, so that aspect of the Purusha which is in conjunction with the Chitta. So the coupled system that we talked about when we looked at the Pratyaksha Pramanam, and the way we understood was from the Indriya Pranali, the Indriya mechanism, there is the Chitta as an instrument takes that form and presents it to the Purusha, and through the influence of the Purusha, where we saw both something known as a single reflection theory and the double reflection theory. But the Purusha lends the consciousness and the Chitta is merely an instrument. Right? And therefore, if you remember the example, when we had taken, I think, an example of, let's say we see a flower. The Chitta will just say flower because it's an instrument. It is the influence of the Purusha that changes that to I know the flower or I see the flower. Right? So the Asmita Rupa, the consciousness, the reflective consciousness that I see, I know, which then again that is an imprint on the Chitta, which again gets reflected. So that becomes a I see that I know that I know, right? Which again can get reflected, and I know that I know that I know, and so on. And then the closure of this is how this coupled system operates between the Purusha and the Chitta. So that particular Gruhita Purusha is this Asmita Rupa Purusha that we are talking about when we say Buddhehe Bodha. How does the Buddhi cognize? Because of this Bodha that gives the prerana, that gives the sort of the power, the influence by which the cognition can happen. That particular Purusha, that particular subjective entity is the Gruhitra Purusha. And then we say that Gruhitra Purusha Lambanoparaktam, Gruhitra Purusha Samapannam, Gruhitra Purusha Swarupakarena Nirbhasate. And like we drew the parallel to the Vitarkanugata, Vicharanugata, Anandanugata with the Grahana, this one draws a parallel with the Asmitanugata or Asmita Matra, Sampragnata Samadhi. That draws a parallel with the Samapatti with relation to the Gruhita or Gruhitra Purusha. Then Vyasa makes somewhat a confounding statement that we need to understand quite carefully. Because then next he says, Tata Mukta Purusha Lambanoparaktam, Mukta Purusha Samapannam, Mukta Purusha Swarupakarena Nirbhasate iti. Now he goes beyond the Gruhitra Purusha, Gruhita Purusha, and he says Mukta Purusha Samapannam. Okay, and this is quite confounding because there are lines in the Upanishads, like the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that says Vijñātāram Are Kena Vijaniyat. So the one who knows, how can you know him? Okay, so fundamentally, even in Sankhya, the Chitta cannot know the Purusha by itself. The Chitta similarly cannot know the Pradhana, even the fundamental state of Prakriti by itself. But Vyasa is making a statement that says Mukta Purusha Lambanoparaktam. So as a support, the Mukta Purusha, when that becomes a support, there is a Samapatti, Mukta Purusha Samapannam, Mukta Purusha Swarupakarena. So the Swarupa of the Mukta Purusha gets taken by the Chitta. Now to understand that, there is this line that I later found that says, see, now we saw Buddhehe Bodha in terms of the Gruhita. So in the Asmita, there is the Buddhi and the Purusha, and the influence of the Purusha is enabling the cognition. Now, Saeva Buddhehe Bodha, now the Buddhi Bodhaka Purusha, that same Purusha, the Saeva Buddhehe Bodha, Yada Vishayavrutti Nam Na Bodha Bhavati, Sattva Purushanyata Khyati Matravastha. Okay, that is what is referred to in the Mukta Purusha Lambanam. So normally in a cognition, the reflection is happening of the vrittis that the Chitta is taking. So if the Chitta is looking at a flower, it's the reflection of the flower, and so on. Now, when you come to a state where the Viveka Khyati is attained, where the Chitta has realized, if you remember, we have talked a little bit about the Viveka Khyati also, where the cognition is about, see, in the normal state, the Chitta, because it is coupled with the Purusha, it thinks this is me, this is I, and that is Asmita. In the case of Viveka Khyati, the essential difference between even the completely sattvic chitta, the sattva is of the state of knowledge, but the sattvic chitta as an instrument, and the purusha as a chinmatra, okay, which is only the entity profuse with consciousness, that the essential difference between the two is realized. That is Viveka Khyati. In this particular state, the chitta is not reflecting any vishaya. Okay? The chitta is not reflecting whether no sthula, no sukshma, no asmita, no grahana, nothing. The chitta is in a state of realization of the difference between the chitta and the purusha. In that case, the pratibimba or the reflection is of the purusha when the state of the distinction is realized. And that is the mukta purushalambanam. And that is a viveka khyati state. And that is the ultimate of the samprajñata samadhi, as we had seen earlier. So this is how the mukta purushalambanam is to be understood. Sarva kleshadi muktaha. Okay. Now to the question then, has the chitta completely understood the purusha? So there it says, the chitta is a mere instrument. It cannot fully realize the purusha, because when the full thing happens, that is asamprajñata samadhi, the chitta completely goes away. The chitta, which is an evolution of the prakriti, will fade away into the prakriti, and the purusha alone will remain. So the explanation to that is, in this case where the distinction has been realized between the chitta and the purusha, the infinitude of the purusha is not reflected by the chitta. The distinction and the nature of the purusha is realized. So it is not a complete reflection of the infinitude of the purusha, because that simply cannot be done by chitta, which is a mere instrument. Therefore, it does not contradict the vijñātāram mare kena vijaniyat. Now suddenly the chitta has not gotten the ability of completely understanding the purusha. What it has understood is the distinction between chitta and the purusha, and therefore the essential nature of the purusha. And that is the line mukta purusha lambanoparaktam, mukta purusha samapannam. And this is a reference to the progressive samapatti culminating in the viveka khyati state. Okay, so this needs to be understood. And there is just a last few lines so that we can close it off today. So we are sort of beyond time. Next time we can look at maybe more insights into this. But so tad evam abhijatamani kalpasya chetasaha gruhitru grahana grahyeshu purusha indriya bhuteshu ya tatstat tadanjanata teshu stitasya tadakara pattihi sa samapattir ityuchyate. So this is a summarizing line. So whether it is with the objects, grahya, the instruments and the process, grahana, or the knower, the grihita, the tatstha that he described, right, confined to that, staying steady there. Tadakara pattihi, taking the form without any distortion or aberration, that sa samapattir ityuchyate, and that is known as samapatti. Okay. So the main distinction between the normal knowledge, where again the chitta takes the form of the object, and samapatti is that samapatti is completely undistorted, yathartha jnanam, and it completely circumscribes the object, whether in space or in time, right? And whether from the gross to the subtle, the complete understanding is reflected in the chitta. Now, there is another summarizing line that says, Teshu gruhitra grahana grahyeshu sthitasya dharitasya dhyana paripaka vashad apahata rajastamo malasya chitta sattvasya ya tadanjanata tadakarata sa samapattihi. Again, this is a good elaboration because it will help us in the future chapters. Because there is this notion of Sanyama, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Okay? Now to relate to that, it says Dharitasya, which refers to the Dharana on some particular entity. Dhyana Paripaka Vashat. So once after the Dharana, the confinement, Dhyana Paripaka refers to the fructification of the Dhyana. So there was a Dharana, then the Dhyana, which then fructified. Dhyana paripaka means the fruition. So dhyana paripaka vashat, because of that, what happened? Apahata rajastamo malasya. The mala or the dirt in the form of rajoguna and tamoguna has been destroyed. Apahata rajatamo malasya. Chitta sattvasya. What remains? The chitta sattva, the pure sattvika chitta. But in what state? Tadanjanata, tadakarata, sa samapatti. So that is samapatti. So hopefully we have understood samapatti as a concept. The details of the Savitarka, Nirvitarka and so on will come in the subsequent sutra. But this particular concept has to be borne in mind to understand the sort of the upcoming sutras.
So since the sutra topic was very terse, and I know the mind is all out of shape now. So I just want to make a summarizing statement here. I told you just now that chitta is a marvelous material. It's marvelous material. And I said that in a perception, the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, they really become in our mind. We don't just get them. Like mechanical devices, tape recorder, etc. They just take the sounds. Camera just takes the appearance of form. It doesn't become it. But our chitta becomes. Now this might be confounding for you as to how this is. That's why the mind matter is such a marvelous matter. It is capable of becoming. And all yoga therefore takes recourse to the becoming aspect of it and works on it. Now it becomes means what? It is like this. All these objects, what is the primordial first cause of it? What is the material of all these objects? First material. Whatever is the first material of all these objects, whether gross or subtle or living, non-living, all that you see around, all the experience around, what is the first material of it is Sattva Rajatama, according to metaphysics. The first and foremost, the primeval raw material is Sattva Rajatama Gunas. The primeval material of Chitta also is Sattva Rajatama. And therefore, if the raw material, first the raw material is the one and the same, this can become that and that can become this. A gold bangle can become gold necklace. Gold bangle can become gold vessel. Why? Because the material is gold. And gold can be becoming this as well as that. It can become bangle, it can become ring, it can become ornament, it can become vessel, it can become a chip. Because the material is one. Similarly, material of Chitta is Sattva Rajatama. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, all objects, source material, raw material is Sattva Rajatama. Therefore, see, this form can become that form can become this form. Like bangle can become necklace, necklace can become bangle. What is the process? Make it gold, melt it, make it gold, change the form. Similarly, smell, what is the raw material of it? Sattva Rajatama. That's called primordial matter in Sankhya metaphysics. Primeval matter, source matter, Sattva Rajatama. The Chitta, what is the source matter? Sattva Rajatama. What is the source matter of the mind? Sattva Rajatama. So mind can become smell, mind can become form, mind can become sound, mind can become taste. That's how it's a marvelous organ. It's one thing is the source material is one and the same. So last statement I will make it, there is a Vignan called Surya Vignan. See, all matter that is on the planet is solar matter. Solar matter. That's why this experiment took place during one of the festivals in North India, and some British physicists had come here in 1930s. Kumbh Mela of some mid-30s. And there mystics had got together there, and there was one Surya Vijnani, solar scientist in classical sense. And he said, you give me anything, I will transform anything into anything. So the British physicist gave him a flower, and he said, I want granite out of it. Granite out of it. He said, okay, no problem. And then in front of him, he demonstrated. He picked up various lenses, number of lenses were put in, withdrawn, put in, withdrawn, put in, withdrawn, and the flower was slowly transforming. The flower was transforming something, and then it became invisible, and then something started appearing, and something started becoming visible and appearances, and then that became granite. That was granite piece of stone. He said, how is it possible? He said, the flower is of all solar matter, so I devolved it to an extent. From where it could be evolved into granite. So he said, the triangle there. Because it is all solar matter, he said, that's how the flower has become granite. There is no miracle. I have not played any magic here. It is purely Surya Vijnan. Because this is solar matter, that is solar matter. So devolve this solar matter, devolve your bangle into gold, and evolve gold into a vessel. Possible. Where is the miracle? Is it a miracle to turn out bangle into a vessel? Not at all. You know it is gold material. Take it back to gold form, melt it, and then shape it to vessel form. So I devolved flower to a point from where I could evolve granite stone. That's how the flower became granite. And there is no miracle, it's science. That is called Surya Vijnan, one of the classical sciences practiced by the seers in Himalayas. Similarly, Chitta becomes Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Samapatti is possible. Chitta will take the form of Swarupa of anything because the material of it is one and the same. Sattva Rajatama is the raw material. Here, Sattva Rajatama is the raw material for Grahata, Grahitru, Grahana, Grahya. Instruments, objects, subjective entity. They are all material, they are all Prakriti. And therefore, in Samapatti, that's how it happens. Yogi's Chitta will take Swarupa of Grahya, Swarupa of Grahana, Swarupa of Grahitru, because the raw material is one and the same. Like clay, out of Chinese clay, you can give any shape: elephant, aircraft, car, cart, rose, lotus, because the material is such that it can be given any shape. So that's how the material is of Chitta. That's why it's a marvelous material. It can not only take all forms, it can take all perceptions. Clay cannot give you sound. Clay can only take physical forms. Clay cannot take my voice. You cannot get clay rendered into my voice because it only takes physical forms. Chitta is much more than a clay. It can take phonetic form. It can take any form, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Simply, it's no miracle. It's a metaphysics. Raw material is Sattva Rajatama. All this is Sattva Rajatama. Your pure mind is Sattva Rajatama. Fecal matter is Sattva Rajatama. Disposable matter is Sattva Rajatama. Eatable matter is Sattva Rajatama. Digested and nutrients is Sattva Rajatama. Your energy form is Sattva Rajatama. That's how the primordial matter is. That's the metaphysical precept behind all these postulations. Prakriti. What is that matter? Sattva Rajatama. That's why yoga believes in transformation. Samadhi is not trance. Samadhi is transformation. Samapatti, you will see this transformation. The psychology will tell you it is transformation. And not just cognition, not just perception, not just knowledge. We get knowledge, we don't become knowledge. Is that right? We get knowledge, we don't become knowledge. Whereas we are capable of becoming that, because our raw material and raw material of anything around it is the one and the same. So that's the marvelous primordial matter, which is matter, source matter of anything and everything that is around you. Not only on the globe, in the entire solar system, in the entire universe, entire multiverse. So same source matter. That's why anything can become anything. Everything can become anything. No miracle. Thank you for putting up with this session. The subject matter is very, very, very terse. But if you have inclination towards it, then it becomes fascinating. See, you will know the rose if you like the rose. If you know the rose, you will start loving the rose. If you love the rose, you look at the rose. If you look at the rose, you love the rose. And all our knowledge depends upon our love. If you don't love, you don't like. That's why we all want to love the subject, therefore we know the subject. As the time will come, you should not love the subject. That's why this passionate knowledge. Knowledge is based on passion. If you have passion, you have knowledge pursuit. But however, finally you want dispassionate knowledge. You want dispassionate knowledge for perfect knowledge. However, without passion, you won't have knowledge. Understand how passion, dispassion are not diametrically opposite of each other. Passion will start your knowledge. And for essential knowledge, you have to have dispassion. That's why we say dispassionate knowledge. For proper knowledge. If you have passion, your knowledge won't be proper. So find out how long you should be going by passion. Where should you give up passion? If you don't give up passion, you will never have essential knowledge. Passion, dispassion, these words again. Beautiful kind of inquiry takes place in philosophy about terms, terminologies, words, their meanings. They seem to be opposite, they are not opposite. Last example, what is opposite of happiness? Sorrow, you will say. What is opposite of sorrow? You will say happiness. Wrong. Opposite of happiness is non-happiness. Non-happiness need not be sorrow. Opposite of sorrow is sorrowlessness. So, but how we are muddled, we look at them as opposites, antonyms. Pain and pleasure are not antonyms. They are called dualities. Opposite of pleasure is pleasurelessness. Opposite of delight is delightlessness. Opposite of delight is not sorrow. Sorrow is different state. Opposite of sorrow is not delight. Opposite of sorrow is sorrowlessness. We mess up with the words. We mess up with the words. That's why Vaiyakarana Shastra. The Vaiyakarana Shastra will tell you what are antonyms and what are synonyms. We mess up with all those things. And with that basic ingredient, we carry out our pursuit of knowledge. It's going to be faulty. It's going to be like if the algebra first factor is gone wrong, the mistake is going to escalate in the last step. If anyone is student of algebra, if the first step is gone wrong, the mistake is going to escalate progressively, step by step, step by step, step by step. Now the first mistake we have made at the first factor, pleasure as opposed to sorrow, sorrow as opposed to pleasure, we are going wrong. We are all going wrong. The more we go far, the more we are going to go wrong exponentially. Anyway, so that's why the jnana, as it is essentially understood, is so important for our pursuit, not just knowledge. So many things come in, even our words, our expressions, our language, We need to work on our language. Language needs to be improved. You might speak faultless English, but still there are mistakes because of certain notions, certain ideas. Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
We have overshot the time, so question answers next time.
So we'll chant the shlokas on Guruji and then also. Vaijnānika shikshakatve
Vaijnānika shikshakatve
kalākāra āsaneshu yaha
Kalākāra āsaneshu yaha
Yogābhyāse ca tattvajñas
Yogābhyāse ca tattvajñas
tam vande sundaram gurum
Tam vande sundaram gurum
Yoga vruksho lokesmin
Yoga vruksho lokesmin
vardito yasya preranaya
Vardito yasya preranayah
Yogacharyaya gurave
Yogacharyaya gurave
sundaraya namo namaha.
Sundaraya namo namaha.
Thank you.